It is Friday. RawMikeRichards.com. Broadcasting live from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto, 234 King Street East, out of the Pacific Junction Hotel. Coming up today, it's soccer. Soccer. So, in our pool, we've had to make our choices. And I can tell you right now, I'm disappointed in myself in the choices that I made. There's certain teams that
You've said that a lot about a lot of things.
Yeah.
So.
No, this is...
That's like you and me on Friday night.
Yeah. Once again, more disappointment and self-loathing in the studio. There's certain teams that I'd love to see get through, and I'll just here's a little foreshadowing. The Cavani injury has changed my opinion on what I thought could happen, and that's so disappointing. Owen O'Callaghan, a beautiful Irish person, will be coming in studio. You'll see. He's fucking brilliant. Oh, speaking of brilliant, he also has a Brazilian football show that is probably the best. Ooh. I mean, if you want information on the Brazilian team,
I do.
Well, you're going to get all the information you need, my friend. And as we like to say, and so much more. Oh, there's more.
Oh, there's more.
Oh. I'm going to lick that more. Also, how will Sweden do against England? Well, if we base it on senses of humor, we know all kinds of British humor, right? Love the British humor. Do you know what Swedish humor looks like? Because I got to be honest, I've never really seen Swedish humor, and it's a hockey joke. It's hockey. It's based on hockey. So you tell me. Because I watched it a couple times and went, wow, okay. Also, some fighting. You know, it's a Friday. We like to see it. So there was an international basketball game between the Philippines and Australia. I've never seen a basketball fight like this. This was as close to, I don't know, the Philadelphia Flyers of the 70s playing, I don't know, the Boston Bruins. I've never seen anything like this. It's bizarre. And then I thought, what about another great fight? Well, Dave is one. He loves matchups. Mm-hmm. How about the Bionic Man versus Bigfoot?
Bionic Man versus Bigfoot.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good matchup.
It is a very good matchup.
That's a good matchup.
And we know
watch that.
And we know who's playing Bigfoot. So this is that's a tough matchup for Steve Majors, who possibly Lee Majors. Lee
Majors. Yes.
He only had one acting move. He only had one thing that he could do. Do you remember this? And it was kind of like
nobody had that background music when it was. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. They
knew something was happening, man.
Yeah. It's like, but shouldn't it be like an amazing thing, like when he like jumps over a house or whatever?
Sure. Yeah.
In this Bigfoot fight, he walks down like a little hill.
Okay.
Why you? What bionic magical strength did he need to just walk down a path?
Maybe the editors and sound people pressed the wrong button at the wrong time. Right?
It's supposed to be broken sticks, Steve. Shut up! No, you shut up. And then they zoom in on him because Steve Majors had, and this is way before Dwayne Johnson stuff like that, but Steve Majors had this look. I don't remember that.
He had the eyebrow first.
He had the eyebrow, and they'd zoom in, and then sometimes you'd see the. Because I guess the eyebrow had certain excitement to it as well.
You have to add some music to it.
The other thing too, and I don't know why it came up. Like every once in a while, if you're online or you're on, as we are on YouTube looking for stuff, for some reason these big moments when a national anthem is sung, and I'll be honest, we've seen so many sporting events. I mean, how many Super Bowls have you watched on television? I mean, there's so many events. Is there a national anthem moment that sticks out for you? One that you'll remember like always? And for the most part, that's kind of a hard question. And sometimes it's based upon maybe something happening before the actual event. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a big part of it. And so, and maybe we'll start with this. And this is someone who has been on our show. But it was the moment. And it happened just after the bombing in the Boston Marathon. And it's one of the first times where I saw Dave, and maybe you can help me out on this, But the word of a town and then the word strong.
Yes.
To me, I thought Boston strong might have been the first time I'd seen a phrase put that way.
Agreed. Yep.
Don't you think it is?
Yeah.
Because I get that people have done it afterwards, and I understand why they do. Like Humboldt strong, and look, anytime there's a
Toronto strong was here about a month ago, about 6 weeks ago, with the terrible incident on Yonge Street with
the crazy guy who ran everyone down.
Moron who should be. Well, I'll save that for another day. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. Okay, and I get that. So, but I always remember what it looked like in Boston with the crowd, with Boston Strong, and one of our good friends of the show not only singing the national anthem, which he always does in a very, very special way anyways, but Rene Rancourt just is able to capture a moment because I think he's a great guy on top of it. So he has the theatrics of it, but then he conducts, and certainly not the first time that someone has directed an entire stadium to sing a national anthem, but it was the way in which it was done. It was the emotion in which was carried in the anthem. And for me, if I'm thinking of national anthems that I'll always remember, it certainly would be this one. This is Boston, Rene Rancourt, after the Boston Marathon bombing.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join together and sing loudly with Rene Rancourt as he performs tonight's national anthem. Representing all of Boston's first responders, please welcome the Boston Fire Department Honor Guard to present tonight's colors.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed as silence as we, whose Christ and Christ Son, through the perilous fight, for the red he was, were so gallantly streamed, and the rockets
Truly very emotional. Still watching it, you kind of get choked up a little bit on just the resilience of a people who will not let others tell them how to live their lives. And that's really what that was about. It's why after 9/11, I remember a particular baseball game. I think it was was it the Yankee game?
Yes, it was.
And boy, I'll tell you,
that's one of my moments for sure.
That was one of yours, yeah.
Yeah, not only national anthem, and it's funny because we're not American citizens. We love the United States. We don't like what's happening there right now, but we do love the country. We love a lot of people. We have a lot of friends and family in the United States. But the one thing I was really cheering for after the whole 9/11 incident and everything that happened, and then they finally got back to normal, or as normal as they could, was when George Bush took the mound and threw the strike. It wasn't a national anthem, but he had to throw a strike because he was the president of the United States, and there was almost a sigh of relief in the building, maybe the country. Not to say that that was the moment where things got better, but you wanted to see a strike there. You didn't want to see the ball hit the ground. It sounds funny talking about it now, but at the time,
it captures the moment of what needed to have happen.
It totally does. On a different note, Whitney Houston is the best ever Super Bowl national anthem singer in the history of the world if I live to 500 years old.
I'm telling you, isn't it so funny? You think two guys like this, pretty guy-ish.
Yeah, we don't listen to Whitney Houston in the car.
But I can tell you, for me, that would be my second.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing like that. That arrangement, the arrangement was unbelievable. And, I mean, Ray Charles obviously has had some great moments, too.
Oh, sure. There's been a lot of...
But,
they bring out the best of the best for the Super Bowl.
But Whitney Houston,
she is the best of all the best.
Yeah, and you know what a shame, too. What a terrible story it ended up being for her, which probably tells you when you marry someone, try to make a better choice.
It's a good call.
That might have saved.
That should have been in Tyler's book, too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I haven't read it, but if I did, it better be chapter 1. A couple moments, too, when Canada junior team went on those, I think it was 5 or 6 straight gold medals, when they arm in arm and sing the national anthem the first time. That was big for me. I don't even remember who the anthem singer was, but it was the actual team doing it. Moments in person. It was tradition at the Winnipeg Arena. Burton Cummings would come out with his little piano and hey, I'm doing a show here. He'd come out with his organ and sing "O Canada," which was awesome.
He's a talented guy. I don't think people realize how talented this is.
Yeah, and the other thing, and you'll like this one, Mike. I'm watching an exhibition friendly at Soldier Field because I happen to be in Chicago for that weekend to see the Cubs, and I see the United States play England in a friendly at Soldier Field
before it was renovated.
Okay,
cool.
Sven Goran Eriksson was the manager of the English side at the time, so you have all the stars of the stars. England travels like nobody else, even for friendlies. There probably was, I'm guessing, okay, it's a full stadium. I'm guessing English supporters, there was at least 5,000. When they sang "God Save the Queen," I had chills, and I have chills still thinking about it. And I have no allegiance to England or anything to do with it. But when I was on that arena, when I was in that stadium on the sidelines, and they were just kind of on the corner, and all of them are singing as loud as they possibly can, "God Save the Queen," I was like, wow, the entire city can hear this, and there's only 5,000 of them. So Ted Nesbitt tweets in, and I agree with this too. I don't usually agree with him. No, I'm just joking. But he makes a good point. Anthems, to me, the Russian national anthem during the Soviet Union and Red Army days was always incredibly stirring.
Yeah.
Not that I was pulling for the Russians, but it definitely gets your blood up for the game. And I wrote back to him saying, as a kid watching it in the 70s and 80s, it was intimidating.
I was afraid of the anthem.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, I heard the. I was like, you start to get. There's an anxiety about it because it's kind of like it's like Darth Vader just walked into the building, right?
It's exactly it. That's a really good point. Yeah. You're scared as hell, and you want to beat the crap out of this team. Like there's never a better rivalry than Canada, United States in the 70s and 80s, and it never will be. Like everybody talks about, Canada's biggest rivals, United States. It's not like it used to be. No. It's not the hatred and the not knowing who's on the other side.
Well, the Cold War. Totally, I mean, Liam McGuire would certainly talk about that.
You never wanted to lose.
No, it was philosophically two different parts of the world who really didn't agree with each other's philosophy.
That's right.
And so that's why when they called it, a war on ice, it really was. And for the Canadian guys who went out there the way that they wanted to play, even though they weren't in shape and they didn't have all those other things, it was on principle that they wanted to beat these guys who were seen as robotic. They were seen, all these things that we thought about them, we thought they cheated. We always thought they cheated, and there was times where they figured out ways to do that. And there's no question that they did in different sports as well. Just watch the the 72 Olympics, that basketball game or whatever that they replayed 3 times until Russia finally was able to win the gold medal. But I mean embarrassing stuff like that. But that's part of that history. And when you start talking about national anthems, there are some that just hold a certain image. The American national anthem is incredible. Like
yes.
It's an amazing piece of music.
It's a very good piece of music.
And as Canadians, obviously we hold it very tight. And I hear that music, I think I'm wearing the goalie pads again, sort of going back and forth. And
what's the number one thing you think of when you hear the USA national anthem? Who do you think of? I got one particular athlete.
Oh, not Carl Lewis.
No, Jim Craig.
Jim Craig?
I think Jim Craig, and I'm not a goalie. I think Jim Craig, and I think Jim Craig wrapping the flag around him and crying when he sees his dad.
Right. Yeah, that's another great moment.
That is a massive moment.
That's a great moment.
I love the 1980 USA hockey story. I've watched documents. I've seen the movie. I've even watched a Disney movie where Kurt Russell kicks ass.
Well, see,
and he's awesome in it.
Michael Rosioni says, and I believe it was on one of my shows. I don't know if it was ours. It could have been ours. And I said, so, you know, and you're a consultant on this film, so it's not like there's any surprises. But when you saw the finished product, or when you saw what Kurt Russell, who's always one of my all-time favorites, I mean, I just think the guy is, even as a human being, I love this guy. Was he close? He goes, was he close? He goes, there was times watching it where I had to remind myself that it wasn't Herb.
Yeah.
There are times where I had to remind myself when he was, you know, berating the players and acting a certain way and had his hair, you know, with the plaid pants and the jacket and the whole thing. He said it was almost eerie at one point how close he was.
Yeah.
And
massive moment.
And again, so hard to translate sporting moments to movies. Most of the time it's a fail. It's even more of a fail when it's hockey because they're almost completely disastrous
Yeah, it's
movies.
like ankle burners.
This.
Yeah.
Is the #1 hockey movie?
By far. By far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Miracle, if you haven't watched it, it is amazing how well they actually did it. Because I wasn't, in 1980, I was 8 years old. I remember watching it at my grandma's, my mom's parents' house, but I didn't understand the realm of how big of a deal it was. But for the rest of my life, I've always read it, watched it. I've probably read about 4 or 5 books on it. It's one of my bigger hockey research memories that, you know, even talking to some of the players, like Dave Christian was a Winnipeg Jet who left that Olympic in Lake Placid, which I've always wanted to travel to just to see the.
I've never been in Lake Placid.
Just to see the arena because it's not that far away from
we're
here.
not that far from it.
No,
we're
so
not.
Like talking to Dave Christian about it and other players, how, you know, Kenny Morrow is the only defenseman in the history of the world to have a gold medal Stanley Cup within a couple months of each other on the same year because he went on to join the Islanders. The Islanders go on that tear for 4 straight cups, etc. And it's an awesome moment. And if you just want to do one thing and watch one thing on it, watch that movie because it is tremendous and it's well acted, well played out, and it's not one of these phony. This guy's kind of skating. It's like no, they actually used hockey players for it.
Yeah, they actually. I mean, they just did it right from the very beginning, and I think sometimes it's also consulting. We're just getting out our phones just in case.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't trust these guys.
No, I don't
What,
either.
you can't park for free anymore? Not a free world, free society. Just get off our backs.
I don't. It's funny because you see different people that are lined up like that look like parking attendants, but they're not. And then you have these two spazzes here sitting there blocking my view.
I just don't.
Get lost.
We try to park for free, as you know, every day.
Yeah.
I think it's.
We've only been caught once in a year.
So 45 minutes is going to cost me $1.70. You thieves.
Yeah, that's.
Deb, you got $1.70?
Yeah,
$1. You just have $1.70. Actually, Deb also said as well, and that's a good point, is that the national anthem after the Las Vegas tragedy.
Yes.
The anthem after that. That's a
right.
good point, too, because that also, again,
massive, yes.
very emotional. You're watching rawmikeRichards.com, either on the actual website or the dedicated YouTube channel. Keep subscribing. Keep driving that number up. We appreciate it. And share it. Remember, that's how it works in social media. You got to share this stuff, and we appreciate it because we see everything just kind of leaping forward for us, and we really appreciate it as we continue to go forward. Is this going forward, I wonder? The Swedes will play England, and we're going to have Owen O'Callaghan is going to come in, and we're going to talk about what we expect to see with all these matchups coming up, including a real tough Brazil and Belgium. See, that's the one that I think is, boy, that's going to be a tough one. But Sweden, England feeling pretty good about themselves. And so I wondered, if it was based purely on comedy and the culture of the comedy that they have, we know British humor. There's all kinds of it. By the way, I think on the movie network, they're currently showing. If you've seen the movies called The Trip, there's various ones. So there's one in England and there's one in Italy. Now there's one in Spain. It's hilarious. So we know what English humor is. But what about Swedish humor? What about Swedish hockey humor? So courtesy of, I have no idea what this is or where it comes from, here is what is funny, Dave, in Sweden. continues. Hold on. There's more.
Oh.
See, they're saving him now.
Oh.
Yeah, wow. Well, there it is. That's what's funny in Sweden.
0-0, Uruguay and France in the 23rd minute. Mike, back to you.
Really? The draw is good money. That's all I know. The draw is good money.
Or as Devin would say, 0-0.
Oh, yes, you get that flair, does he?
Yeah.
That's very nice. Congratulations to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So the one time I needed you actually to play well,
Yeah.
you stunk.
Thanks for showing up
They
yesterday.
were terrible last night in Saskatchewan.
Playing against a team that's dressed their third quarterback.
Unbelievable.
Third quarterback. What a joke.
And I'm sorry, it's the offense. I mean, if they get after it, you'll hold a team to like 9 or 10 points. I get Chris Jones dials up his defense, but seriously?
Thanks for keeping me on camera while I was mimicking the light.
I was wondering if
doing the Dracula there.
At some point Johnny Football wasn't going to sneak in there. I was like, come on.
He should have snuck in there. Especially that even that first drive, 10-minute drive, and they score a field goal off of it. Really? And then they kick a single with that garbage kick that the Bombers cut. Garbage.
Oh, yeah.
Nice job, Rod Black.
Yeah. No, he could do it. He can do that one. So we're going to talk about little football here in moments. Owen O'Callaghan, who writes for a whole bunch of people. He's also the Irish Independent back in Ireland. He's got his own blog. He does a lot of stuff for us. And they said it's going to be interesting today because, as you mentioned, France, who everyone just feels they're just going to walk through this thing, and because Cavani being hurt is the reason why. And so you had to make our picks already.
Yep.
And I had to actually put a check mark this morning on France.
Ooh,
and I don't feel good about it. I don't.
Devin says it's France. Actually.
Oh, does he France?
Yeah,
France.
France.
Well, and their name for their national program, their team.
What's that?
Cox.
Really?
I'm not making that up.
Okay,
isn't it? It's true, right? See, Devin knows. French Cox.
He's like my favorite team.
The guys on Uruguay are going. I don't want to play a thing called Cox.
No kidding.
Luis Suarez going, bite a cock. No, you're not. You're not going to bite a cock.
You start making references to South Carolina's university program.
Oh, the Gamecocks.
Yes.
Oh, I got a hat that
says it.
Go Cox.
Go Cox.
Hey, excuse me. What's the name of? Come on. We're all open here. We're all very, very friendly with everybody. Baseball, I'll tell you, I can't believe how much I have, and then I guess it's always about who's competitive, but I have almost
no show
fallen off. I'm
who's
like,
interested in
I'm
baseball
like,
right
it's
now.
right now. That's a push for anybody, and I'm trying to make up these parlays because of the disaster that Hamilton was.
So you bet on it anyway, the baseball?
So I'm looking at it and it's like, I'm not betting on. Every time I touch Baltimore, they win. And Baltimore is garbage.
Baltimore rarely wins.
Yeah, and I get caught with them. Teams like Cincinnati, but there's a lot of. How about this game last night? Washington beat Miami 14-12.
Yeah.
Just get off the planet. Like, that's not even baseball.
Turner 8 RBIs in that one too.
Yeah. So if it's going to be T-ball, just let us know before the game starts, and we'll take the over. But I mean, those teams like Washington, to me, for years and years, it's why I don't like them. So when Gio was supposed to be good and Strasburg, they never turned the corner. They always seem to have all this promise, and then right at the end of the season or in the playoffs. And if I was a Nationals fan, I would not be a Nationals fan. I'd look for somebody else.
Well, here's the sad part about the major leagues. Just quickly looking at this standings before we get to soccer and so forth. In the American League, everything's almost been decided, and we're in the first week of July. Yes. The Yankees in Boston have a 15-game lead over third place Tampa. So basically Tampa, Toronto, Baltimore out of it. Cleveland has an 11.5-game lead over Minnesota. So basically Minnesota, Detroit, the White Sox, and Kansas City out of it. Houston has a 1-game lead over Seattle, but 9 over Oakland, 13.5 over the Angels, and 18.5 out of the Rangers. So doing my quick math, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams are in playoff contention. Guess how many teams make the playoffs? 5.
Yeah.
5 are in right now. The American League has been decided, and it is officially July the 6th. Thank you.
So that's what I can't remember where I've been so disinterested. Like, call me in September.
Yeah.
And we'll get it going.
Like I'll watch Yankees, Red Sox, or Astros, Indians, or whatever it works
Even
out to
Seattle.
be.
Even Seattle will watch a little bit because they're kind of
and they'll be that second wild card team. So they're basically going to play the loser of the Yankees, Red Sox, because the loser will be in that wild card elimination game, right? So it's because the Indians have already clinched that division in the Central, and you know, whoever doesn't win between Yankees and Boston gets the other position. So it's done. It's done.
Yeah, no, it's and again, it's, you know, sometimes we pound on the association because it's not that competitive. Well, now all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we can be worse than you. Get a load of Baltimore and well, the Blue Jays can be a rebuild. I mean, out the door. So, and I can be honest. You know, the timing of when someone is worth their most is sometimes the toughest time to unload that player. But if you truly want to get something back in return, then Josh Donaldson should have been gone last year.
Should have been, yeah.
So what do you think they're getting this year? Because this
they're
year
getting
hasn't played
nothing
well.
because they're getting an injured player, a guy that may be back for that first trade deadline at the end of July. What kind of player do you get out of him? The value is diminished immensely. Like, we're talking about worse than what the Calgary Flames picked up for Jerome McGinley, which was basically an expiring player that should have been dealt. And I love Jerome. Trust me, I have his jersey on my wall in my basement sign. That's how much I love him. Should have got rid of him earlier than that.
All that core group of players that they could have got stuff for because their cupboards were bare after that.
Yeah, they basically they squeezed the lemon. And then they went back to the lemon, kept on squeezing it, squeezed it, and then the lemon started turning black, and they still hung on to it. And then the black turned to like a purple, and then the whole thing was rotting. And then it started to stink. They still kept it. And then,
wow.
And then,
I didn't think we get this stuff.
No.
It's detailed in fruit.
Hashtag lemon talk.
Just before we get to O'Callahan, we got to show you this. Like, I've seen fights in different sports where they normally don't fight, and I wouldn't think that the Philippines would be one of those teams that gets aggressive. Get a load of this game this past week. International game, Australia, the Philippines. This thing turns into literally, if you've ever seen Gaelic football, that's what this game looks like, probably property of FIBA and whatever international body, but whatever it is, it turned into WWE.
Australia. 31 na lamang. Pogoy goes to Junmar. Di makatira doon si Don Maker. And there's something going on right now. Andre Blatch, there's a free-for-all going on. Calvin Abueva, everyone coming off the bench.
And Thon Maker.
Here they go.
Calvin Abueva on the floor. And Thon Maker. Oh, look at
John Brian Cruz going after Giggert. Right at our table. This is security has stepped in. Assistant coaches and team officials. Nagkagulo na talaga. And still going on the side. Someone's on the floor.
This is something we don't want to happen.
This is unfortunate. This is unfortunate.
There's an Australian player. Oh, and someone throwing a cushion.
It's Peter. Peter is there.
And this is incredible. Thon Maker throwing a flying kick. And now bottles are being thrown on the floor.
Oh my goodness, here comes the Boston Crab.
Well, the play has been rugged.
Play has been rugged. Well, that's one way of putting it. That just turned into WrestleMania. What would we be up to now? What's WrestleMania?
Coming up to 35 at MetLife Stadium in April of 2019.
Well, it should
Not
be
that we're waiting for it or anything.
As good as that. So Owen O'Callahan, who's been on. I think he was even on the Playboy channel. I don't know what's going on with you, but you're
Well,
everyone likes soccer all of a sudden.
all of a sudden it's like,
what happened in the world?
See, this is what gets on my nerves. It's like people who follow these Olympic events that they've never ever, like kayak or the hammer throw, and they're like, "What do you think's going to happen with that Russian where they dive synchronized diving?"
Yep.
I go, "I don't fucking know." What have we ever talked about diving? diving.
It's so true.
And now people want to know about
I think soccer's still at a better level. Of
Slightly.
diving.
Slightly.
I just
Yeah. But now the famous, like, so you're what now? You're as famous as who?
Oh, I'm going to say the President of Ireland, Michael D. Higgins.
There you go.
I think we're on par now. I think.
Is that right?
Yeah, when I walk into rooms, they open the door for me and stuff.
Was it Taoiseach? What are we?
Taoiseach.
Taoiseach, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Taoiseach.
our Prime Minister, but
Yeah.
Michael D. lives in a very
Oh.
fancy house in Phoenix Park. Yeah.
Phoenix Park, is that? Oh, that's right too. That's where they
Yeah,
get to go.
Arsenal.
We have family in Castleknock, which is just
Oh, it's just, yeah.
just around the corner.
Just like peek around the hedge,
Yep.
and there it is.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's funny, depending on the neighborhood that you talk about. If you talk about from back home, so we have people in Ballyfermot,
Oh, yes.
and you'll run into people who go, "That's the real Ireland. The beautiful people, brilliant people." I go, also in Castleknock, fucking like them people. They're all too good. They're too good.
Colin Farrell is from Castleknock.
Is that-
It's
is
an
it-
FYI.
Oh, there
you
He's
go.
an Irish celebrity.
Yeah,
So
there you
Colin
go.
Farrell,
Yeah.
if he's listening.
There you
What are
go.
the old Callahans? You're Cork, right? You're Cork
Oh,
City.
yeah, Munster, yeah. Cork, Clare, down south, Tipperary.
Oh, that's
Predominantly Cork.
That's
yeah.
beautiful. I love going down to Kenmare is one of my favorite places. And although, again, there was a festival where all the, as they say, the cultures came out, and I didn't understand. I mean, the goats are coming, and the sheep and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
And I'm like, and the gypsies?
Yeah.
Oh, my God, the gypsies. They can go anytime at all. I'm not a fan. Not a fan. Not a fan.
I have to be careful who I offend on this show. So
Well, you can offend anybody
I
on this show.
try to keep a white
Go
word
ahead,
there.
Owen.
Well,
Have at it.
I'm taking a look at, and of course, we've got one game underway. So, but-
34th minute, still zeros.
0-0. Cavani, obviously a massive blow, and his spectacular game beforehand. It's a real shame that he's not playing in this, because it just, I think at best they need to keep the French sort of at bay. So this game could be 0-0s into late.
Yeah, it's certainly not going to be as open and thrilling as the France-Argentina game. That was end-to-end. It was, Argentina were very cavalier in their attitude. Uruguay don't play like that. They're defensively oriented. They'll be really rigid, really tight. They won't give you any space. Mbappe won't be running 80 yards with the ball like he was allowed to against Argentina. And they'll grind. It's all about a grind with Uruguay. And then obviously the big blow is Cavani, because Cavani's the outball. Cavani is the individual magic. Suarez hasn't had the best of seasons domestically, so it's nice the way that they've been able to play alongside each other.
Yeah, because he's on his own today.
He's on his own,
Yeah,
so he
yeah.
has that extra burden of responsibility. Whereas obviously Cavani was able to get him out of jail a little bit. Suarez has been great in build-up play, but the ball's always really been ending up with Cavani, because that's where the focus of Uruguayan attack is. So obviously that changes today. So it's interesting to see how they're going to cope with that. But
And the French duo, I mean, Griezmann is up front. I mean, they've got a lot of quality guys in big leagues that can put that ball in the net.
yeah, and also France can even ever so slightly just change things up. Even what you saw in Argentina was against Argentina was Matuidi, who was playing on the left-hand side, and he actually contributed really well to that game. Pogba played very well. Kante played very well against Argentina. And then, as you said, further up the field, if Mbappe may be struggling, they still have Griezmann. They still have a more direct approach with Giroud. So, you would think on the law of averages that France still have enough to get past Uruguay, but expect 0-0, expect a 1-0, expect possibly extra time.
Yeah, I can see that. I thought maybe it would end up being a 1-0 game, and not a game that you necessarily want to record and show your children down the road.
But it's
maybe.
weird, because even those tight games at this tournament have been really exciting.
Well, I think the
for
tournament
different
itself has
reasons.
been,
It's been amazing.
those penalty. Okay, so let's talk about Russia, because that to me is the crazy story. I mean, of all the team, and of course all the insinuations about
Yeah.
Putin and everything
Yeah.
else, of how the reffing is going, but in a penalty kick, it's hard to hide. And that the goalkeeper made some saves that, look, I don't know if they play the game again, but that sport is played for the moment. And in this moment, Russia have been playing so far above what anyone thought would happen.
It's inexplicably so.
Yeah.
I mean, before this tournament, one of the key narratives was, hey, what are we going to do about this World Cup when the hosts are going to get eliminated at the group stage? It's going to be humiliating.
I thought Egypt or Saudi Arabia might get the odd draw. Like, I really thought that was potentially out there.
Because ultimately, it's not just every journalist was proved incorrect. You know, journalists base everything on form. They base it on history. They base it on how Russia have been performing in the build-up to a tournament. There was no even hint that they could do vaguely well at this World Cup. Like, they had an absolutely dismal European Championships in 2016. They finished bottom of their group, and it led to a number of their squad just saying, "Okay, I'm done. You know, this is we're in a bad place right now." And you fast forward 2 years in their own country. They obviously opened the World Cup with a massive resounding win over Saudi Arabia. Yeah, that was kind of confidence-inducing, I imagine. But they also lost the group game 3-0 to Uruguay. You know, that was a much better reflection, I think,
Yes.
of where
what
this
the team
Russian
really
team
is,
is.
yeah.
Right.
But you fast forward, they get another inexplicable victory over Spain, who were really, really poor.
They they must look at that. I mean, maybe they'll never look at that recording.
Yeah.
But that was bad.
It was terrible, and it's weird. You mentioned penalties. I think it's an interesting thing that we've had 3 penalty shootouts already, and for the untrained eye, you can understand it. Shootouts are a weird thing. A lot of people will talk about good fortune and good luck, and how it's a lottery, but it's not that at all. There are people who've been studying penalties for a long time, going back decades, who will look at patterns. And they always talk about the most important moment of a shootout is the coin toss, because the team who shoots first has a 60-40 advantage. Now, we've had 3 shootouts so far. The team shooting second have actually won all the shootouts. Yeah. So it's worked in reverse.
This has gone so against so many things, and even listening to so the English. All right, England. So they win in the penalty kicks, which now, because at first they said, well, there wasn't great expectation, and now they can't control themselves. No, they really can't.
This is the fork in the road moment. What do you want? Do you want low expectations, or do you want football's coming home? We're going to win this?
Oh, coming home. That's right too. Isn't there like a song or something?
It was from the European Championships.
Oh, okay.
And it's funny. I don't want to kind of whatever on English fans, but in Euro '96, so the great, amazing pop band, the Lightning Seeds, were brought on board to do this song called "Football's Coming Home" because the European Championships were being held in England in 1996, and it was Frank Skinner and David Baddiel, who were 2 comedians, and Ian Broody from the Lightning Seeds, and it was this great pop song, and it charted and it did really well. And football did come home. It was a great tournament, but England obviously have a notorious history with losing penalty shootouts. They at Euro '96 they beat Spain in a shootout, and it was this exorcising of the demons. This is where it's all going to change, and then they lost in the semi-finals in a penalty shootout to Germany. So I think in terms of it's coming home stuff and all those memes that are flying around Twitter and stuff, just let's remember what happened in '96 when you won a penalty shootout and then lost. Not too long after that. So I think everything in moderation, expectations in moderation. For England fans, Sweden are going to be very difficult to beat. They haven't got to this juncture of the competition.
And they played so much better than I thought they would play.
It's a very strange thing, because you look at their team, Sweden, and you're left scratching your head. You're like, okay, Marcus Berg, their striker, plays in the Middle East. Ola Toivonen plays in France. He can't get his game. And like offensively, you're thinking, how is this
Ibrahimovic
working?
in his day.
Yes, they don't even have that. They've got Sebastian Larsson still there, who has had trials and tribulations with Sunderland in the Premier League. You've had you have Grenquist, who's a terrific centre half, but you're trying to figure out like how have they done this?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a chemistry experiment, right? You think of a tournament and how you get a bit of belief and you get some good, strong personalities.
We just had an NHL season where a team in Las Vegas just proved that point. Yeah.
So if you're an English supporter and you look at, Colombia is the tougher matchup in the round of 16 than what they're facing right now in the quarterfinal, don't you think? Like, shouldn't they be having a little bit of optimism that they beat a better Colombia team and now facing a weaker opponent, even though they're higher up in the draw now?
It's an interesting point. I still think that we haven't really seen much of England at this tournament.
Right.
I think that that's what you get from a group that has Panama and Tunisia.
Yeah.
And then in a final game against Belgium, you rest all your players.
That was your only test, yeah.
In terms of open play, have you created much? Harry Kane against Colombia scoring from a penalty. You have to look at things within context.
Right.
Now, the thing is, will we even learn more about England in a game against Sweden? That's hard to figure out as well. You're not sure how that game is going to play out.
I'm guessing probably not. Yeah.
Yeah, or like it might be tight, it might be cagey, it might not be very offensive. So but what they do have is they do have Harry Kane, and they do have a guy who, when they need someone in the penalty area to grab a chance, Kane's the guy to do it. He's a natural successor, like it goes Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer, now Harry Kane. That's really the trajectory of an English striker. They possess that kind of incredible nous just when you need it. You know, they're obsessed with scoring goals relentlessly, and Harry Kane's just another example of that. Like even the awarding of that penalty against Colombia was just incredibly clever from Harry Kane to win that penalty.
Right.
It's something that strikers do all the time.
Yes.
They wrap themselves around defenders. They want to
There's a
force
skill
the
to it,
defender,
yes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they want to
Yeah.
force the defender to grab as tightly onto them as they're secretly doing to the defender.
Right.
And hopefully the referee will see it from a certain perspective and give a penalty, and it works a treat.
Yeah.
And that's just the mentality of a striker. And that's what England possess. And if they're going to go far in this tournament, it's really going to revolve around Harry Kane, because you know, you look at Raheem Sterling has contributed in his own way, a lot of off the ball stuff, which is very impressive. You don't see it on cameras, you don't see it on that kind of wide angle, but Sterling for me has been very, very good. Lingard obviously scored a great goal against Panama, but you can kind of delete that game really from the record books because it doesn't really tell us anything. So it's still England. They're still a difficult one to really to try and properly understand. The one big thing about them is that in terms of a coach and in terms of a leader, Gareth Southgate is a really smart guy. Very quiet, very
Calming
unassuming,
influence on the
and
team.
very calm.
Yes.
And you could see that even with penalties. It was the two shootouts to contrast. On one hand, you had we mentioned Spain against Russia.
Yeah.
When that game went to penalties, Fernando Hierro, the Spanish coach, had no idea who was taking the kicks, in what order they were going to be taken. You know, you could see it play it out. The cameras are following them on the field, and he's pointing at guys and asking them, "Do you want to take one? Do you want?" And you quickly learn it.
Men's rec league.
You quickly learn in the moment. Hang on a sec. This
Devin, you're not kicking. Okay, you never even played soccer before.
Yeah. Or like, there's a great clip doing the rounds from Spanish TV. Koke, who missed the one of the kicks in the shootout. Hierro, the coach, is saying, "Oh, Koke, will you take one?" And Diego Costa comes up to Hierro and says, you shouldn't allow Koke take one." And Hierro says, goes back to Koke, "Are you okay to take one?" Koke's obviously, "Yeah, no, I'll take one." And when he misses, all of the Spanish players are lined up with their arms around each other. Diego Costa steps out of the line and looks at Hierro and says, "I told you."
Oh, Diego Costa, it's so funny watching him play because he reminds me in the hockey, he's Dustin Byfuglien. He's this big thuggish guy that, you know, he's more skilled in the box than probably maybe, you know, people don't give him credit for, because he actually has a finesse. But he's also the guy that looks like he's coming to your house at night going, "You owe me, you owe some money to Manuel, and you gotta pay, man." Like he's a bit of a thug out there.
Dustin Byfuglien, as my wife.
There you go.
Yeah, our beautiful time spent in Winnipeg.
That's how it's
that guy
spelled.
Oh, that's right, too.
Whose name we can't pronounce. Did he have an incident with a boat?
Yeah.
Yes, he did in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Leave him alone. There's nothing wrong with drinking on a boat, by the way. Get off its back.
It's funny the things that come back to your head. But yes, Diego Costa and Dustin Byfuglien is a good comparison.
When you look at, okay, for North American terms, that bracket, when you look at Sweden, England, Russia, Croatia, that's what you're going to meet up. Is there a scenario that Croatia isn't by far, heads and tails, the best of the four? And who would have thought that at the beginning of the tournament? 33-1 to win it all. I think they're going to be in the final.
From a neutral perspective,
Yes.
that's the team you want to be there. It's a very romantic story. You know, Croatia 20 years ago got to the semi-finals. Quite, unfairly, I use that term in kind of inverted commas, lost to France. Lilian Thuram scored twice in a very memorable game. I don't think he ever even scored for France ever again, except for those two goals in the semi-final. And they've been through their various dramatic, traumatic, turbulent stories domestically. But in terms of players who you really admire, Luka Modric, Ivan Rakitic, they're skillful ball players. And you talk about momentum, you talk about chemistry of a World Cup, and you talk about kind of big definitive performances, and they got one in the group stage against Argentina. If they draw that game, you may not have seen such a kind of a cohesive effect on their squad. But suddenly in a group, you're having Argentina run around like headless chickens, and you're responsible for that. You're in control of this great result. And I think that taps into belief and developing that within a tournament. And also, like what you said, they're on the right side of the draw.
Yep.
It's very, very difficult if you're one of those teams. Very, very quickly, you had Germany get eliminated, Spain get eliminated, and Argentina get eliminated. You have England facing into a game against Sweden today. Really, they should be facing Germany.
Bingo.
Right.
That's how it should work. So I mean, that's what I predicted in my head. Okay, yeah, they'll get through Colombia, but they'll get knocked out by
Bingo.
Germany in the quarterfinals,
Bingo.
because that's the way that it should go in your head. It's all ripped up now. Croatia head into a game against Russia. Yeah, Russia is the hosts. Yeah, they'll have support and blah blah blah. Russia, in terms of technical quality of players and performance level of players and caliber of player, fade in comparison to what Croatia possess. So I mean, you look at, it's absolutely kind of remarkable talking about Croatia possibly being in a World Cup final. But you cannot definitively predict anything in this tournament.
Before we get to you, Mike, 1-0 France at the half.
Oh,
1-0 France at the half.
Okay.
Or 1-0 France at the half.
And people,
Sorry.
they are called cocks, just so you know.
Le coq sportif.
Yeah, see,
Le
right?
sporty coq.
See, right there. Cocks. French cocks. The Brazil-Belgium game, I look at it, I'm like, oh boy. Like, of all the games I'm looking at, I'm like, okay. The only thing that I would say about it, it's seemingly, because Belgium I always think they got a great program and they got great players, and anytime, like a guy like Kevin De Bruyne, he creates space. Like, it's so hard to do at the highest of levels because they defend the ball so well. But when you see these guys who are able to do that and create space and get in, and so they can get that shot. I mean, he does it every Saturday that I watch the Prem, and I just wondered, though, is Brazil saving their best for last, and do they still have the kinds of players, which I think they probably do, where on the back end of Belgium they might be slightly susceptible. So I do think that Belgium certainly Brazil is favored, but if Belgium, it's not like it's David and Goliath here. I mean, it's kind of two Goliaths. I think Belgium's very, very good, but I still think Brazil probably gets by.
And I also would say, for people listening, if you have a chance to just skip out of work for a couple of hours today, park yourself in front of a TV screen, the closest one to you, and watch this game.
It should be magic.
This has all of the ingredients that would fuel a World Cup classic, and they don't come around too often. There's very few of them, when you look at your history books. But when you look at how these two teams match up, you look at the personalities that will all be on the pitch simultaneously. This for me, and it's difficult. You always have that part of you that's quite cynical. You don't want to build up something too much,
right?
But you mentioned Belgium, that performance against Japan. For a long period, it was so poor.
I was staring at the TV there. You got to be kidding me.
Japan 2-0 up.
Yeah. Japan
also good value for being 2-0 up. I mean, it's obviously you could see from their faces when they scored that opening goal. This is incredible. We're beating Belgium 1-0. This is unlikely.
Yeah, surprise.
But then they go, however, 2 minutes later, and curl a shot in from 25 yards straight to the corner. I mean, it wasn't just, we're going to play the percentages here and hold on to what we have. They went for it, and it's 2-0. And then you talk about small margins, you talk about big moments. Jan Vertonghen with a header that he's trying to send back across goal. He gets it all wrong. The goalkeeper comes out trying to read the header that's going to go across goal, and it loops completely over his head. Yeah. And you look at each other thinking,
okay, here is the great comment from my beautiful wife whose parents are Dubs, and she looked at the television and she said, well, that was too high for the Japanese guy.
Oh, no.
I said, I know. It's a little unfair, I think.
As he's watching it over his head to the corner.
But that was like, you could just feel that arrow, and I thought, do they? And I thought, oh, God, they do. They got time.
That's the moment, because suddenly there's the momentum swing, and you can't blame yourself and go, we made a fatal error, or they've totally outboxed us. It's just a moment. It's a kind of a freakish moment, and it leads to a 2-1 situation. And then from there, Martinez is clever with his substitutions. He holds on for as long as possible. Fellaini sprung from the bench. You know what's going to happen. Azar, who's been terrific in this tournament, sends in a gorgeous cross. Fellaini does the rest from close range. 2-2. And at that stage, you're thinking, right, hang on. It's a matter of time now.
Yeah.
Can Japan hold on? But the winning goal from Belgium, I talked about this quite recently. From end to end, you don't see this very often in football now. Normally, football's a game. It's calm. You put your foot on the ball. You recycle possession. You wait for support. It's very kind of not robotic, but there's a lot more patience involved. This is Japanese corner kick. it's a poor one. They take another risk instead of just holding on for extra time. You know, keep that ball in the corner, run down the clock. You go for it. Courtois catches it, and then it's De Bruyne who is the big key to this. Straight through the middle of the pitch, and obviously his teammates have such confidence in him in terms of his awareness, what's happening around him. He's going so quickly right down that center of the pitch, but he knows what's around him all the time.
Right.
And it's almost like a training ground goal. You have an overlap on the left-hand side. Lukaku knows that too.
Yeah.
He plays a gorgeous dummy, and it's a tap-in for Nasser Chadli, and it's 3-2, and Japan are out of the World Cup. Now, in terms of that goal and that moment, that is a superb, special World Cup moment. And also, in terms of that momentum, Belgium are leaving that pitch, leaving that stadium, thinking, not we haven't got out of jail, we've won that game.
Yeah.
Because, again, like that, they get a possession from the corner. They might just think, we've been doing well to get it into extra time. We've got it back to 2-2. We've done okay here. Instead, they're programmed to go for it. Belief in themselves, belief in their own ability as footballers, and they create a really special World Cup moment. I don't know how much we know about Brazil yet in this tournament.
Well, don't let that secret out of the bag, because as I've been telling people, you know, when you're an expert journalist you do a lot of research and you get information from different places. So Owen phoned me up last night. He said, you know, Mike, he says, I have to be honest. I get all my Brazilian information from a particular Brazilian football show. I said, you do? He goes, do we have time to show it? Okay, so courtesy of Owen O'Callaghan, you know, from Cork.
Yes.
Here is the Brazilian football show where he gets all his information. Let's roll this.
Vamos fazer o seguinte, ó. A Emily, pra quem não sabe, gente, a Emily, ela é campeã de futsal. Falei muito nisso, viu? Emily, você deveria ter dado uma dica pras meninas. Falei pra elas, tem que ficar uma no gol, proteger o gol. A outra...
I see what you're saying.
Ok. Vai, Letícia! Vai, Letícia, vai pro meio.
So I think they're saying... So here's the reenactment. This is where you get your strategy. And, yeah, this is... So what they're saying is they're not going to park the bus. That's what I'm getting from this.
This is what this says to me is it's a high press. They're really gonna push high. I mean, Neymar probably defensively out of the gate.
I think she's Neymar. She's the one who she's rolling there,
and also this is a kind of it's a nice reflection of what they're going to do with Casemiro not being there. I think in that midfield and what they're going to do as a result of that.
See, well, this is why you watch that show, obviously.
And they're very subtle about it as well. Which I can know from the naked eye, it's very, very difficult. But for football aficionados,
there goes Neymar again.
Exactly
boy, I'll tell you. So we practice that. There you go. See, there you go. There's, you have to appreciate where all information comes from, I believe.
Completely. We should all be sponges and absorb as much as we can.
Well done.
So are we saying France, Croatia, Brazil?
No. France would play.
No. Who's winning in the matchup? So France, Brazil, Croatia, England.
I predicted France to play Brazil in the semi-finals.
Okay.
So I kind of have to stick with that prediction. On the other side of the bracket, I have to admit that outside of England, and I think it might just be one of four. I didn't have any of the other three reaching this stage of the competition. So I had England losing in the quarterfinals. Obviously, that was based on them meeting Germany. I still think that Sweden might do England.
When you start talking about these matches, I said if Cavani wasn't hurt, then I'm looking at this France game and I'm thinking they got a shot. They're going to try. I mean, if they play defensively like they normally do, they're going to wait for that one, and that's how Cavani got. I mean, these magical sort of moments, which is why the World Cup is. People were saying, all this soccer talk. What about all that? I said, what do you mean? Well, it's not the Super Bowl. No, truly, it's not the Super Bowl.
Do people say that?
Oh God, yeah. Well, they don't understand. They don't get it.
They're kind of the World Cup
Yeah.
versus Super Bowl.
So the Super Bowl might, collectively, I don't know if billion people would watch the Super Bowl.
It does well, but it's not at the World Cup level.
For one,
I mean, there's not really like, you know, it doesn't bring countries to its knees
No.
like it would do, you know.
It brings North America and then sputtering countries across, you know, here and there.
But we're talking about the
I just
world's
kinda
most
find it-
popular sport.
I just kind of find it really funny that people would still say
it just
stuff
does.
like that.
I mean, and you know what? That's a very almost antiquated. That's a very fading attitude. Up until I'd say 2001, I was one of those guys. I didn't know anything.
Okay.
I knew zero about any sort of football. It was a bunch of guys in shorts who couldn't touch the ball with their hands. Oh, don't put your hands. And then rolling around and my head, and Italian guys on the ground. And I was like, it was all shite to me. I didn't really care about it.
Okay.
And then I bet on the game.
Were you in Ireland at the time? When
No, I wasn't. I wasn't making an accumulator.
Right.
Accumulator. And I bet all of a sudden that was it. And then what happens is then you no longer have to bet on it. You're just watching it.
Yeah.
And when I say watch it, you know, I'm online, you know, in the secret world of all the pirate, you know, where I'm watching the African Cup of Nations.
Yes,
My son's
indeed.
going, what is that with all the drums and the noise? I go, oh, it's just Burkina Faso against another. What? It's because all of a sudden I'm just enamored by. And so, if we look at the demographics, there are some sports that are literally dying on the vine. Have you seen the attendance for Major League Baseball? And
yes.
the numbers?
Terrible.
They're getting crushed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the reason is that young people are gravitating to sports that are there's more action to it, and that there's a perception, I think, that those participating in that sport are truly the best in the world at that thing. So all of a sudden, you find kids in high school, elementary school, like they would know who Neymar is.
Yeah.
They understand teams in the Premiership, but not only that, they also understand, you know, when you have the Ronaldos of the world, when you have these massive stars, you'll see jerseys. My schools, or my wife is a public school teacher, elementary school teacher, and kids will wear soccer jerseys. That would never happen in our day. I mean, if someone brought like a Liverpool or, you know, I mean, or got the big one of an Arsenal or a Chelsea, something really big, but, you know, someone wasn't coming wearing a Burnley. Burnley. I mean, it's just you know.
Yeah.
Or what's the here's my favorite name, because I have bet on this team. Scunthorpe. Is there anything more English sounding than Scunthorpe?
Hey, go to Scunthorpe. That's your next step right there. I mean, just a little tour.
That's right.
Getting a question live on our YouTube channel. Lots of kudos to you, Owen, from this viewer, and he asks you, and we'll chime in on this one. What's been your favorite goal so far, as artistic or one that you've liked in particular, where you stand out and say, "That's my goal of the tournament"? I got one in my head. If you want me to say it, I can.
That's a tough. There's been a bunch of beauties.
I like the Ronaldo penalty kick against Spain.
Okay.
Where he curls it in, finds the top right, scores. I believe it was his third of the game, and it was a 3-3 draw at the end of it. That was my favorite goal.
Gee, I don't know if I have. I don't know if I can think of one.
There was a few of them. There has been a few of them.
There's been saves. I could almost go to moments where some of these saves in the penalty kicks have been phenomenal.
Oh, it's been incredible when you're going the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like Pickford had one for England the other night where he's actually going the wrong way, but he still manages to stick that left hand up and claw it.
He's pretty cocky in that interview after the game, though. Did you? Some of the things like, "Well, I was studying a lot. You know, I look at it on film. It went the other way. He went the other way, and I knew I could get." And I was like, "You knew? Didn't know?"
The France-Argentina game had a couple of absolutely amazing strikes. The right back for France, which is pretty much the identical goal that Nacho scored for Spain against Portugal. He cuts basically he almost like dissects the ball the way he kicks it.
Sure.
So it swerves and it goes in off the far post. I think that's probably my favorite goal of the tournament. Yeah. There's obviously the goal that Shadley scored for Belgium was really special, just for a completely different reason.
Sure, the third, that's right.
Yeah, you know, but they'd probably be my two. And also, I apologize because every game rolls into the next one in my head. So when someone kind of puts you on the spot and says, "Oh, what's your favorite?" You're like, "What goals have been scored? Actually, can you remind me?" Because you just forget everything. But they'd be my first two, I think.
No, all good, good. Yeah, these questions are off the spot anyway.
Yeah,
we don't know what's coming.
I mean, it's not usually very fair to look at a set piece goal. So like, you know, the free kick from Ronaldo against Spain, you go, "Oh yeah," but it was a dead ball. It was stationary
Yeah, that's
when
true.
he hits it.
That's true.
But it's a remarkable strike, so you have to give it the respect it deserves as well.
Who's been the best player of this tournament?
Oh,
Not the Golden Boot winner, but the best player.
It's a great question. Well, you probably, as of right now, I mean, you look at Uruguay are probably at the quarterfinal stage because of their defense. Their two centre halves, Jimenez and Godin, are outrageous. They don't give anything away. So they've been really, really solid. Mbappe had the performance of a lifetime against Argentina,
and that was just I to allow him to do that to me was inexcusable.
Oh yeah,
I mean inexcusable.
Yeah, but also you have the tactics that Argentina were deploying. You know, you allow so much space behind you, so that all it takes is for the young, really, really fast guy to get a run on you.
Yeah.
And he's just gone past you so quickly, and there's all that space left in behind. So tactically, they were really kind of showing up a little bit, Argentina as well.
Well, I got a question for you. When you're sitting there watching this, and we'll wrap up here shortly, but if you're Ireland, you're the national team, and you're watching all of this going on, and you look at what wins, what doesn't win, and again, it's also in the moment, so you're not changing necessarily your whole strategy. But the one thing when you're backing the lads, and you're coy big and all that. It's not a program that plays with pace. It's not. They don't have the types of players that are going to break away. They don't have height necessarily. They're not a size team. They're just always a very solid team, and you pray for a goal, not early, maybe 80th minute, something like that, and then they play their guts out. I mean, a lot of red faces, a lot of sweating, a lot of pushing,
a lot of stereotypes going on.
There's a lot of stuff going on. Can it change? Because if they don't, they can't get to what they're seeing now. I mean, there must be sort of the heads that gather at some point. And Canada did that, Dave, with their hockey.
Yep.
They had this summit saying, okay, we're not beating everybody like we should. So what is it that we got to do? And Hockey Canada, from the roots on up, from the ground on up, decided that they were going to do that. Can Ireland actually do that, or is it just inconceivable that you could change philosophically and other ways as well?
It's very difficult because you have to firstly look at the fact that it was 1988 before we even qualified for any tournament. So we've always been a very, very small place, and we've always just had to fight for everything. And if we get a little bit of a lucky break, it's great. And we got to a European Championship in 88. We got to a World Cup for the first time in 1990, and the country shut down.
Right.
I mean, it just shut down because we couldn't cope with the celebratory nature of this. What is little old Ireland doing at these tournaments? This is incredible. This is a seismic moment for the country, right? This is economic recession. People lost everything, and in the middle of it, you had a football team. People remortgaged their houses to go to the World Cup in Italy to support this team.
Good God.
This is what it was. So that's what it means to the country. But that's changed now. The football, we've removed ourselves from the Jack Charlton era. Our culture of football is pretty rigid. I mean, we don't really promote creative playmaking players. We never have really had them. If you look at the history of Irish football, Wesley Houlihan, who was just stepped away from the Irish game, it took him a very, very long time to even get an opportunity with the senior Irish team. When he was younger, they thought he was too small to even make it as a professional.
But if you go back into the country's history, but that football was an English game.
Yeah.
It's an English game.
Yeah.
And so people here don't understand necessarily the GAA and what it really truly makes Ireland sometimes special.
Yeah.
Which is that. It's the hurling and Gaelic football, which I love.
Yeah.
And they're played at certain pitches, but the English game is not played on that pitch. General. Or now it's not as rigid as it used to be. But
yeah, I mean, there was a rule change, and I think as a country, we're kind of past that at this stage, because it taps into and also when you go back in Irish history, boring your listeners with a history lesson, what you say is correct. The kind of development of soccer in Ireland was coinciding with the Irish Free State. So you had a lot of British people based in army barracks in around the country. But once they left the country, the sport still existed because Irish people were just love the sport. And I think a lot of people try to make that divide between traditional Irish sport and the garrison game, as it was referred to. Rugby obviously was something similar, but rugby is very, very classically English. Soccer has little bits from this sport, little bits from that sport. So even, you go back to the 1920s, Irish people had a huge admiration and obsession with this sport. It wasn't, this sport's English, we don't care about it. So I mean that's and as well as that, there's a big debate in Ireland at the moment. Obviously we've had a very successful rugby team. Rugby is a very, very elite game. It's only played to a very high level by a tiny percentage of countries, but yet there's a conversation in Ireland about this is now our national game, rugby.
Really?
Which
Wow.
the majority of the majority of sports fans in the country absolutely rubbished as a suggestion.
Right.
It was written in a national newspaper by, funnily enough, a former Irish rugby international. But the rugby will never have the impact and influence on the country that obviously the GA has, but also soccer. Like, soccer is responsible like that for these incredible national moments, like going back to 1988 and 1990, people getting on this huge adventure, seeing the country blossom in major tournaments. That's a special sort of background that you'll never ever reimagine or kind of reinvent. So soccer is always it's always very, very close to the public's heart, and probably that aligns itself to a modern day frustration, like what you've talked about. Aesthetically, the Irish soccer team over the last number of years, it hasn't really been the prettiest thing. You go back to the European Championships in 2012 under Gianni Trapattoni. We were in a very, very difficult group with Spain and Croatia and Italy, and that was a relative humiliation. But Euro 2016 with Martin O'Neill, we created another great moment. We beat Italy, we qualified for the knockout stages, we ran France very close. So you could argue that in a tournament situation, Ireland don't do too badly. The fans turn up. Everyone loves Irish supporters.
Yeah.
They're incredibly friendly. They're so loud, colourful. They bring a lot to a tournament.
I love the Koi Big. Koi Big is, I love it.
Yeah. And I know some Irish people kind of get annoyed by the whole moral victory sort of stuff. Everyone loves us when we go to tournaments sort of thing, and that becomes most important rather than results and performance.
Right.
But the last time we were at a tournament, which was 2016, we got to the knockout stages. In France, arguably, were quite lucky to beat us. We got a man sent off and the game changed. Qualifiers are different. Qualifiers are laborious. It's long, and it's difficult for Irish fans to get properly excited about it. And also, within context, Ireland's a small place, and when we do achieve something like qualifying for a tournament, we'll grab it and we'll enjoy it, because you don't know how long it's going to be until we enjoy it again. And obviously, World Cup in a few years. I think the rule from FIFA is that every country will be allowed to compete at the World Cup.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Is that not that's their grand plan?
Come on down to Toronto. and
Everyone
North
in,
America.
guys. It's just like Costco. Just everyone, just show your card on the way in. Just pick up what you want.
I think Costco actually has a team. I think Costco actually qualified as a nation.
I think so. Yeah.
And thanks so much for coming in.
No worries, man.
A lovely job, and for those watching, probably appreciate a little more insight into, certainly Ireland, which we talk about, or as I said, God's people. They are God's people. They really are.
Love you for that.
They really are. I mean, saying, now you're talking about Good Friday. Now it's open. Now it's open. We're open for business. Thanks, pal.
Pleasure.
So lovely having you come in. That was great today.
What?
And I'm a wee bit thirsty as well. Are you thirsty? Are you thirsty?
Always.
Oh, man. Look what's opening up over there. Some of the black stuff. Oh, it is time. By the way, Owen, for those that want to see your work, how can they do that?
Just log on to Twitter and search for me. All the information's on the Twitter bio, so bore people with information there.
Oh, no, there's a ton of it. You do a ton of good work for many different outlets.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
And that Brazilian clip will probably be going up later today. And I hate to give away people's sources. Journalists are very picky about it, but this is what we do here.
This is my deep throat.
Well, trust me, I think some of that was going on there too. Hey, have yourself a great weekend. Be back on Monday. And remember, on Tuesday, we're up at Hockley Valley, our tournament for Epilepsy Canada. We will broadcast live right from the pool. And as Devin said, just try to stop me being naked, which was a little awkward for
what he said,
everybody.